Heads up.
Welcome back. During the August district work period, Democrats used their convention to overturn the will of 14 million Democrat primary voters to anoint Kamala Harris, a failed and weak vice president and the most liberal United States senator when she was in the Senate. This was in a desperate attempt to salvage their failing presidential ticket, and there is nothing more undemocratic than having far-left liberal elites anoint their preferred candidate without a single primary vote being cast. But Kamala cannot hide forever. Tonight, at the debate, the country will finally get to see the stark contrast between the strength and success of President Trump's America First policies and the devastation and weakness of Kamala Harris's radical, failed far-left agenda. While I was in my home district this August, my constituents made one thing abundantly clear. They are struggling because of the crises Kamala's policies have created. They are facing the highest inflation of a lifetime because of failed Kamala economics. They're facing a raging border crisis that has devastated American communities because of Kamala Harris's role as Joe Biden's open borders are. And they are seeing a weak foreign policy that has plunged the world into a state of chaos. We cannot afford 4 more years of failure and weakness under Kamala Harris. On the floor this week, House Republicans will bring a series of bills to combat the Biden-Harris failed foreign policy of appeasement that has emboldened our adversaries like Communist China. I also want to briefly touch on this afternoon's Oversight Committee hearing, where I will join members of the Select Committee on COVID to demand long overdue answers from disgraced former Governor Andrew Cuomo on behalf of the families who lost loved ones as a result of his fatal nursing home directive. Yesterday, the Select Committee released a report detailing that disgraced Governor Cuomo himself and his most senior aides ordered, directed, and executed the deadly nursing home executive order, killing over 15,000 vulnerable seniors, confirming what hardworking New Yorkers have known for years. This bombshell testimony also reveals that the disgraced former governor and his top aides were caught covering up their culpability and guilt in an attempt to selfishly save their shredded reputations. There is no question that Andrew Cuomo is responsible for the deaths of innocent nursing home seniors. I want to turn it over to Chairman John Molinar, who's going to talk about many of the bills we have on the floor this week, and then we're going to hear from our Foreign Affairs Chair, Mike McCall, and the rest of leadership. I'm going to start with John Molinar.
Thank you, Conference Chair, and good morning, everyone. I want to thank Speaker Johnson and the Republican leadership for bringing over 24 bills on U.S.-China competition while tackling CCP aggression head-on from the American heartland to the Taiwan Strait. The Speaker has been supportive of the committee's work, and I'm thankful for his vote of confidence in pledging to continue the committee in the next Congress. I'm proud that many of the Select Committee's recommendations are included in the bills this week, along with important legislation from the House Foreign Affairs Committee led by Chairman McCall, as well as some of the other standing committees. And we're here today because the Chinese Communist Party presents the greatest threat to American values and American national security in our lifetime. But we can stand up to the CCP by defending our values and reducing the party's leverage over the United States. This week, Congress will take action to secure our supply chains. From electric vehicle batteries to healthcare to critical infrastructure, the Chinese Communist Party wants to make us dependent on companies subject to its direction. Legislation on the floor this week will take steps to protect taxpayers from being used by the CCP to advance its leverage over our critical supply chains. China Week will also protect American technology. We need to stem the flow of sensitive American technology to our foremost adversary by strengthening our export controls. Legislation brought up by several of my colleagues, including Mr. Barr, a member of the Select Committee on China, will take meaningful steps to advance accountability and close loopholes permitting the flow of sensitive technology to the PRC. And most importantly, China Week will defend our values. Legislation on the floor this week will defend human rights in Hong Kong and counter the CCP's malign influence around the world. This week, we will draw a line in the sand. With one voice, the U.S. Congress will tell Xi Jinping this far and no further. I again want to applaud the Speaker Johnson and the House leadership for bringing these bills to the floor and making China Week a reality. I'll turn it over now to Chairman McCall.
Thank you, John. I want to thank Speaker Johnson as well, particularly for inviting the Gold Star families today for a presentation of the Congressional Gold Medal on behalf of their children who were blasted by a suicide bomber that came out of Bagram prison, and it didn't have to happen. But I want to thank you, sir, for honoring their sacrifice and those families who I was with last night. We've been working, I'd say 3 years, but really 2. The first year, the Democrats were in power, and we did absolutely nothing to investigate the events of Afghanistan and what happened that day through the evacuation. After this is probably the most comprehensive investigation with the witnesses, the documents. It's an historic document. It's not a political document. It's very historic. I was a federal prosecutor. My lead investigator, AUSA and Afghan, we wrote this. And before you criticize it, read it. Everything is built on facts and evidence. And we made our case. We didn't draw conclusions in advance. We built the case all the way up. What we found was actually quite disturbing. We found that on day one, Joe Biden didn't care about the Doha agreement. I know a lot has been said about Doha and that President Trump entered into Doha, but that agreement had conditions placed in it. First of all, Taliban cannot attack U.S. forces, which they were doing. They cannot harbor or protect al-Qaeda, which they were doing. Al-Zawahiri being the prime example. Number 2 to bin Laden was protected by the Haqqani Taliban in Afghanistan. So when Secretary Pompeo briefed President Trump on that, he said they're in violation. We're going to keep our 2,500 troops, 6,500 NATO, with the blessing of NATO, our air cover, most importantly, and our contractors. And we are not going to abandon the Afghans. On day one, President Biden comes into office with a political agenda, a campaign promise built on a timeline. The timeline is to withdraw by the 20th anniversary of 9/11. Had nothing to do with policy, had nothing to do with national security, rather everything to do with a political timeline gimmick. And for those who say that Doha is somehow factored into the president's thinking, I would just refer you to his spokesperson, who said Doha is immaterial to this evacuation. They were hell-bent to get out. It was called Go to Zero, and they did. Go to Zero meant all military, it meant all contractors, it meant all air cover and intelligence pulling out of Afghanistan, leaving the Afghan army defenseless. So what happens? The State Department is charged with the evacuation plan, but they didn't have a plan. They didn't have a plan until the day, they didn't initiate the plan until the day the Taliban actually took over Kabul. Think about that. On their way to the embassy. Ambassador Wilson, in charge of this, flees as a coward, runs to the airport, leaves his employees at the embassy, including the 100 Afghans who we promised we would protect, were left to the Taliban. Thousands of classified documents and passports burned, $7 billion in Bagram prison left behind. Most importantly, thousands of ISIS-K prisoners, the worst of the worst, released out of Bagram, which now impacts this country. They put the Taliban in charge. Can you imagine this? You've been fighting the Taliban for 20 years, and now your sworn enemy is your brother in arms. The Taliban is checking the checkpoints. All of the American citizens, the Afghan partners, and the women and children have to go through the Taliban first to decide if they can get through. Now, if you're an Afghan partner who fought against them, what are the odds the Taliban's going to let you through? We do know one thing. The Taliban let the suicide bomber from Bagram through the checkpoint to then kill 13 servicemen and women who we'll be honoring later today. But it didn't have to happen. But because there's no plan, there's chaos at the airport. The Taliban's there firing. Our Marines are thrown on the ground undefended. And that fate, that time, that day, we knew the day and the time it was going to happen. And sure enough, boom. And 13 servicemen and women killed, 170 Afghans killed, 45 Afghan military personnel and American wounded. A massive suicide blast that didn't have to happen. So what are the ramifications of all this? First of all, we need to fix this so that if we ever have an evacuation like this again, this will never happen again. We had Saigon, we have this, but we have to get legislatively, and by the way, Mike Pompeo did open a crisis office that was tailored to this, that Biden shut down on day one, puts on hold. 2 weeks before the Taliban overrun Kabul, he shuts down the very office that was designed to help protect. Well, we're going to bring that back in legislation. So where are we today? Well, when you project weakness, like Afghanistan, you invite aggression and conflict and war. It only took a month or two before the Russian Federation's moving into Ukraine. Chairman Xi and Putin are becoming allies, the Unholy Alliance. Xi is threatening Taiwan and the South Pacific, and they're tied to the Ayatollah in the Middle East. Ayatollah raising his ugly head with Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthi rebels threatening the Jewish people in Israel. It's not separated. It is all tied together. The three Unholy Alliance warriors, and I throw Kim Jong-un in there as well. So that is a state of play this president has put us in a moment of weakness across the globe, not strength. And then to end this whole scenario, this whole nightmare, when you take a failed foreign policy and connect it to a broken border policy, what do you get? When you've released thousands of ISIS-K from Bagram, who have gone up to the Khorasan region, to Tajikistan, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, most dangerous part in their external operations. Khorasan equals external operations. Those are the ones coming through visa-free Nicaragua, through Mexico, into the United States. Don't take my word for it. The FBI briefed me. They've detained 8 of them. They got in, by the way, through the CBP One app, set up an interview, and were released into our society, later to be caught by the FBI. And a smuggling ring of 400. And God knows how many more are in this country, a ticking time bomb, a threat to the American people. So with that, I want to turn it over to our whip, Tom Emmer.
Thanks, Mike. Yesterday, Hakeem Jeffries sent his Democrat colleagues a letter urging them to reject our government funding plan, which includes the SAVE Act, claiming that House Democrats, quote, have consistently put people over politics. Today, I would like to correct the record. The House Democrats have consistently put illegal immigrants over law-abiding American citizens. In July, House Republicans passed the SAVE Act, a common-sense bill that requires proof of citizenship for voter registration and removes non-citizens from voter rolls. That should already be happening. Meanwhile, 198 House Democrats voted in favor of illegal immigrants over ensuring safe and secure elections all over this country. The Harris-Biden administration even issued a veto threat, claiming this legislation is unnecessary. If that's true, Why are they so afraid of making the SAVE Act law? You can't have it both ways. Why are they calling a common sense bill like the SAVE Act a, quote, poison pill? The American people aren't fools. Part of the Democrat Party's grand design. Over the past 3.5 years, border czar Kamala Harris let over 10 million illegal immigrants into our country. And now Democrats would rather shut the government down than stop them from voting in federal elections. By the way, there is evidence out there that shows non-citizens have made their way onto voter rolls. Plus, we should keep in mind this is about the American people, and 87% of American citizens agree that proof of citizenship should be a requirement before registering to vote. House Democrats call preventing illegals from voting in our elections, quote, partisan and extreme. House Republicans and the American people call it common sense. And with that, I turn it over to Speaker Mike Johnson.
Thank you, Whip, and thanks to these two great chairmen, Molinar and McCall, who've done extraordinary work on the issues they talked about, and I wish we had time to unpack it all further. As you can tell, either of them could go all morning and give you all sorts of detail. But there's a lot of important things happening right now. Let me address a few, because we just have a couple of moments. Literally, in about 7 minutes, we're supposed to be in the rotunda for the gold medal award ceremony, and I'm really grateful that we're doing that. It's been too long. We'll be doing that in the rotunda. As you know, we'll be honoring the lives of 13 American service members who were killed by terrorists in combat. You heard some of the explanation of that. They lost their lives because of this administration's catastrophic withdrawal from Afghanistan. The facts are stark and they are unavoidable. The administration has failed these families, and after all these years, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have not even had the courtesy to this day to say their names publicly. In just a few minutes, we're going to do that. We're going to say their names. We're going to honor them. We're going to give them the Congressional Gold Medal, and that is the highest honor that we can bestow in Congress. And the families of those 13 brave men and women certainly deserve that. It's also China Week, as you heard. We're taking some very important measures, over 2 dozen bills actually, to counter the Chinese Communist Party. This is something that our committees have been working on for months, and this is something that we must do. China is a great adversary to us right now, to be very frank. I was recently with our G7 partners for the speakers meeting, and all of our allied nations are deeply concerned about what China's doing, and they look to us for leadership. We are the last superpower on the earth, and we need to act accordingly and take appropriate action, and that's what you're going to see. Because the White House has chosen not to confront China and stand for Americans' interests, House Republicans will. That's what you'll see. Tomorrow is 9/11, and we will be observing, as we do every year, a moment of silence campus-wide, 8:46 a.m. We're reminded on a week like this, when we honor gold medal families and we remember September 11th, that freedom is precious, and the people who are willing to devote and even offer their lives in service to that should be duly honored. Let me address the CR and the SAVE Act. We had a good meeting with conference just now, some very thoughtful discussion with all the House Republicans. And let me just explain very briefly and very simply why I think this is the appropriate thing for us to do. We have two primary responsibilities upon us right now. I mean the Congress, the House of Representatives, and that is to responsibly fund the government and to do everything within our constitutional authority to ensure that we have a free and fair election. Everyone in this country is concerned about that. How can I say that? Because I've been traveling the country nonstop. As of the end of last week, I have done campaign and fundraising events, large events, in 198 cities across 39 states, coast to coast, from Washington State to Miami, from Maine to California, all points in between. It does not matter where I am or what public forum it is. Every single time, almost without exception, in all of those cities, every time, open it up for audience questions. The first or second question is about election security. The American people in blue states and red states, in big cities and rural America, they're worried about this. We have to do what we can. The SAVE Act is a response to what we deem to be one of the immediate threats, and that is illegals voting. How can we say that? They say it's not really a problem, Democrats say. It's already against federal law. It is against federal law, but so is minors buying alcohol. But we still require identification to do it. Why? because just because something's on the books doesn't mean people are going to comply. You don't get to go into a liquor store or to go buy cigarettes and check a box and say, oh yeah, I'm 21, give me the product. That's not how it works. It's not logical. It is an exceedingly logical thing to require the states to request proof of citizenship before they sign somebody up to vote. This is happening across the country. Pennsylvania is a very important swing state. Thousands of illegals are on the voter rolls there. Georgia, thousands of illegals on the voter rolls. Ohio, Texas, across the board, across the country, every time, Virginia, every time a state looks at this, they find that it is happening. We are in an era of razor-thin election margins, right? The polling right now in the presidential is the closest that it's ever been. I don't put much stake in that. I'm convinced Donald Trump's going to win the White House, and I can't wait for it to happen. But it will be decided by a narrow margin if you believe the polls. We have members of Congress, as you know, Marionette Miller Meeks won her first election in 2020 to Congress by 6 votes. We have members in California who have won their, Garcia, Duarte, and others, won their districts by 200 votes, 300 votes. It matters. If you have a few thousand illegals participating in an election in the wrong place, you can change the makeup of Congress, and you can affect the presidential election. The American people understand this. It is an 87% issue. It's almost 90-10. Doesn't matter what party people are in. They demand, they want us, and they deserve us to take this action and make sure that illegals cannot taint the election. Only U.S. citizens should vote in U.S. elections, and the Democrats apparently don't agree with that. When we put it on the floor in July, 198 House Democrats voted against it. Well, we're going to give them another opportunity. And I believe we can do both things. I believe we can fund the government responsibly, and I believe that we can do right by the American people and ensure the security of our elections. And I defy anybody to give me any logical argument why we shouldn't do that. That's why I'm so resolute about this. That's why this is a fight worth having. It's a fight the American people demand for us, and that's why we're moving forward with the legislation. I've got a few more colleagues to talk about. We'll be doing that today. The rule vote will come up, and then the plan is for the vote on Wednesday as scheduled, and we'll see what happens. I got time for like 2 questions, and we got to go to the gold medal ceremony. Manu, yeah.
One of the reasons for the opposition in your right flank, including someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene, is they're concerned that you're just going to drop the SAVE Act once the Senate and the White House reject this plan. So can you say right now that you are ruling out passing a clean CR at the end of the day?
Manu, I am in this to win this. I believe, as I just told you, this is a conviction I feel deep in my heart. I've been a co-sponsor of the SAVE Act from the beginning, and I think it's something we must do. That's why it's worth fighting for. I'm not going to engage in conjecture and try to game out all the outcomes. I think this is something that we should do, and that's what we're doing. I told the conference that this morning. I'll say it here again. I am resolved on this, and I don't know what more I can say to show that conviction. Front row.
President Trump has said.
I'm sorry. I'm with Iran International. Secretary Blinken today said the Islamic Republic is providing ballistic missiles to Russia. Chairman McCall talked about the Unholy Alliance. And despite what the Biden administration is saying about slapping more sanctions on Iran, clearly many of these sanctions are not being enforced. What is your assessment of what's going to happen between the Islamic Republic of Iran and Russia, and what effect it would have on Europe?
Well, I'm very concerned about that, and so are our allies in Europe. I just met with them within the last several days. Our allies in that region are concerned because we all know that China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea are coordinating together. They're using one another's weapons systems. They're financing each other's operations because, as was noted earlier, they've seen weakness projected from the Biden-Harris White House. When we project weakness on the world stage, freedom is imperiled all around the globe. We know that. We understand the burden that we carry and have since World War II. That's why we have to have strength back from the White House. We maintain peace through strength. That was the Reagan principle that we still believe in. I'll defer to you. Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Supplemental that the Speaker
Go ahead.
shepherded. I put in there sanctions against drones and missiles from Iran to Russia.
With all due respect, it doesn't seem that the Biden administration...
This is my point. We also put sanctions on energy exports to the tune of $80 billion that fund terror operations. I would call upon the administration to enforce the sanctions that Congress passed in the supplemental that I passed.
Well said. I would love to do this all day, but we have got to get to Rotunda because the families are waiting and about 400 guests. So thank you. I'll see you all in the hallways. All right? Appreciate it.
gave me chills.
You're the best.
Everyone at home thinks so right now. That's for damn sure. I can tell you that. All the channels stopped. Wherever that press conference was, oh my god. Oh my god. I must watch this.
How was your summer?
It was
You,
alright. It was not bad. I'm happy that's cool.
did you go to Milwaukee or Chicago?
I went to Chicago. Did you do either one?
Dude, Steve. Short answer,
Good.
no.
I mean, it was definitely
Would have been my 11th
not as calm as
grade
other August days have been, but also.
You got it.
But
Facing the in, the out.
Yeah.
yeah, no, it was nice.
No, I got it.
I went to Boston, New York for a little bit, but down to South Carolina.
We're gonna pull the pin on you.
Yes, see you Thursday night.
October 27th. And it's weird that
Yeah.
my last permanent half ever.
Oh yeah.
Expires in 2028.
Yeah. Oh, there's something back there. Just in case you want to hop over the flag.
I'll never miss it. I'll miss you guys.
Let's just say it's a ways away. Still excited. Yeah. I can't imagine. I can't imagine you getting the just financially. Sweetheart. Yeah, right. I agree. I don't have kids.
Oh, exciting. Okay. Can't believe we're already in the fall. That's great. I'll be back in just like 1 second.
Yeah.
I mean, have you done AF1 yet?
Oh, yeah. I was just with him in Philly. Or not Philly, Columbus. We were in Detroit.
It's been a good one.
Okay, my dad sent me a picture.
Oh, of the poster?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've got that posted.
Wait,
Do you have the wrong one?
this is the wrong original Star Wars
And then look at the little zoom in.
Revenge of the Jedi.
Oh, yeah.
It's Revenge of the Sith.
I think,
No,
yeah.
it's that was the original name of Return of the Jedi. Was Revenge of the Jedi that they changed.
So my dad worked in a movie theater at the time, and they were gonna throw these away once they changed it, and he was like, "Can I have it?"
Yeah.
This is Return of the Jedi,
Yeah.
not Revenge.
Right.
So yeah,
This was a miss.
I think you're right. I think
Yeah.
they
Originally,
changed
it was called Revenge of the Jedi, but then Lucas said, I'm a Star Wars guy. Lucas said Jedi don't get revenge, so they changed the name after it was already in Revenge.
So they sent it out to movie theaters,
Yeah.
and then they were like, they were just gonna throw it away, and my dad's like, "Fine."
That's cool.
So it's hanging up. It's been hanging in our like stairwell for my entire life. I saw it every single day for 18 years.
Yeah.
Could not believe it. Made my dad send me a photo. Yeah.
This will be a little faster. You don't know the
Oh yeah, I just talked to his friends. I need to. I gotta sit down, and I have to text him.
It was good seeing you guys.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I love that kind of stuff.
My dad's a.
The look on your face, dude.
And that it broke my brain.
Of course, in Animal House, when he fires the gun.
And then if you have any tech questions, let me know. I got you with whatever you need. Yes. Have a good one, guys. Take care. Nice to meet you. Hey, pleasure. Pleasure meeting you guys. See you like next week or later today or something.
I'll see you on Thursday.
Ah, yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, see you Thursday.
Yep.
Hello.
Hey.
How's it going?
All right.
Living La Vida Loca. How's everything? Audio is good? All that good jazz?
Never trust a train. They have loco motors. Dang it. Dang it. I don't have any jokes in me. I got no bullets.
Train jokes ready, man?
I got no
don't have any on me.
Come on, man.
Yes.
You don't have 5 minutes on trains?
I don't yet. I'll work on myself.
Go
Clarissa, how's
sip
everything?
some bad dad jokes.
I got a great one for you. You ready? All right. Two guys robbing a liquor store. One of them holds up a bottle and says, "Is this whiskey?" The other one's like, "Not as whiskey as robbing a bank."
That is bad.
Yeah.
That's bad. All right. So what did you? I'm sorry if I.
I don't know. I don't know if I can function the rest of the day. I texted Albert, dude, you've never seen Star Wars. Huff just blew my mind.
Hello, Chad.
He is not.
Good
he's
morning.
Not replying.
It's just a tough spot.
Yes.
We were going out to the South Lawn, to do some Rose Garden
Yeah.
departure, and somebody was talking about Star Wars. She's like, I've never seen it. Hey! Down with your bad self.
How are you, my friend? How you doing?
Good. How are you?
How was your
Oh, you
summer?
living the dream. Fun.
Did you do both conventions?
I did not. I only did RNC. RNC, no debate, no DNC. I did Biden's vacate, California. It was great.
Are you still a victim of your own success? Are they beating you up? Go here. Come here. You're no good at collecting.
You know what I did last 2 days of last week? I went with Blinken to Haiti and the Dominican Republic.
Yeesh.
Got you for sure. Checking up the microphone. 1, 2, 3. Microphone 1, 2, 3. My social security number is 512-77-1211. Microphone check 1, 2, 3. Microphone check 1, 2, 3.
No, we were in Port-au-Prince.
Why not? It sounds good on your end. Everything good? Oh, good. Nice.
I've usually stood like here.
Diplomatic security
Sometimes they've had me back
all the way, and then they had the Haitian police on the ground.
Yeah, let me know whenever you're ready.
And they had, we got off the secretary.
Microphone check 1, 2, 3. My date of birth is 9/17/99. My first dog's name was Spot, and my favorite color is blue. Mic check 1, 2, 1, 2. Mic check 1, 2, 1, 2. Microphone check, and I'm just gonna keep talking until Clarissa says that it's okay. Mic check 1, 2, 3. Mic check 1, 2, 3. I should probably raise this just an inch because there's not really a lot of members here who are my height. I got you for sure, of course. I'm just gonna keep talking until I get the A-OK to stop. Mic check 1, 2, 3. Mic check 1, 2, 3. My mother's maiden name is Teresa, and the street that I grew up on was called Surfway Drive.
How long were you on?
I was like,
How's that sound, Clarissa? Good?
Thank you so much.
Okay,
How
cool.
long were you on the ground?
All day. So we landed like 11 a.m. and we left around like 7 p.m.
Go?
Port-au-Prince. So we did. So he had meetings. We went first to where the ambassador used to live. That he doesn't live there right now. But that's where they had like all their meeting. He had his meeting with the guy who's running the council, the Presidential Transitional Council in Haiti, and then the interim PM. He had meetings there. Then we went to the U.S. Embassy. He had meetings there. And then we went back to the airport for his press conference. We actually did not get lunch that day, but the embassy did provide us really yummy snacks, which was very nice of them. We were supposed to get lunch, I think, at some point, and I think it just turned into too much of a logistical nightmare. Because there's no roads. Like, we were, like, off-roading. Like, it was
I've been
intense.
there, and I don't ever want to go back. This is slightly off topic.
Sure.
Have you ever covered the OAS for anything?
No.
It's down next to the Red Cross.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in that building? It is fucking amazing.
That's what I've heard.
People get married in their lobby. It's all palm trees and it's gorgeous. But I have been at AP close to 30 years. I have been down there at least once or twice a year. It's the Organization of American States.
Yeah.
Central America, South America. Have you ever heard anyone? The immigration crisis. Venezuela.
Yeah.
Fucking Cuba.
Yeah.
Haiti and the earthquake and the failed
Government. Yeah.
government. Have you ever heard anything out of the OAS taking the lead in any of this
No,
stuff?
no, no, no.
I am convinced. Oh, and get this, guys. They have their own diplomats, their own ambassadors, they have their own staff. It's like a 2 or 3 year detail in each country. In addition to the guys on Mass Avenue at the embassies and ambassador, they have their own separate staff. They go to cocktail parties, they give speeches, and they don't fucking
Yeah.
I am convinced it is a figure for American hegemony in the Western world because they don't fucking anything.
Yeah.
And we're pouring billions into the OAS. For what?
Yeah.
Oh, like Monday through Friday. I love this place.
Yeah. That's
Thank you so much. Just checking.
That is such a
That's interesting.
sore
Yeah.
spot with me. I think somebody should do an article on it.
Yeah.
They put out position papers, but I mean, Maduro, immigration.
Yeah.
You know, stop the migration.
Yeah, right.
It just eats at me. If you want to save a bunch of money, get rid of the OAS.
No, I heard that. Are they bringing like
them.
Is it like?
No, but you're absolutely right. I mean, you never see them at the forefront of anything.
Where are they? What do you do?
Is it like a think tank? I mean, do they?
They put out policy papers.
Yeah.
They give speeches. They go to cocktail parties.
It's almost like a bookends. Like it's one of those kinds of places where it doesn't feel like it's a government, like an NGO kind of thing. It just feels like it's like a bunch of smart people that pay a lot of money to be there.
Yeah.
You know.
If you guys have anybody that covers LATAM or any kind of that,
We have CNN Espanol.
you can ask these folks. What's the
No,
OAS?
I'm not doing it. Don't worry about it. Nothing I'm doing at 10 at night, but that doesn't really matter.
Hot mics. Hot mics.
Okay.
It was great.
Part of me wonders if they're kind of all in bed together because I've done. We haven't. I haven't. Our
My friend
Espanol people have done interviews out there. And,
Charlie actually, funny enough, met him yesterday because
At
I was
the
giving him
OAS.
a tour,
So
and we were meeting on Sunday. He
I wonder if
stopped
they're
by
getting
for
something out of it.
Sunday. Yeah, so
I don't know.
I'm gonna sit.
All right, baby.
Good to see you guys.
more impressed by
See you in the White House, kiddo.
but that's, I think, I understand.
Any response from?
Yeah. Oh, here. Let me show you. I have a message typed up. I think it's a little heavy-handed, but so mine's in blue and then.
Never see Star Wars. That just blew my mind. Yep. I only saw the original once on the 20th anniversary release because I was guilted into it. It wasn't very good.
And then I have a response.
Same with Star Trek.
I have a response typed up that I have not sent yet that you can see. Do you think that's too heavy-handed?
Yeah. Here, let me give you this. Let me send you this. You can say
We're not friends anymore.
same with Star Trek. It wasn't any good. It was an epic. God. Okay. Hold on, Scott. Let me see if I have you in my. I'm gonna send this to you. Tell him even Johnny Cash saw Star Wars. But he'll know I put you up to this.
Yeah.
Heads up.
I guess not.
Good morning. Pleased to be joined with Vice Chair Ted Lieu. And I wanted to start out by thanking the extraordinary group of local, state, and federal first responders back in my home county, in San Bernardino County. The line fire broke out late last week there, and the brave men and women who are first responders are working around the clock to keep property and people safe. and I appreciate their work. I spent some time out with them at the Incident Command Center, at the Emergency Operations Center, as well as the local shelter, evacuation shelter that has been stood up. And I'm thinking about them as we're doing our work here. Congress is back in session, and once again, House Republicans are leading us toward a government shutdown. The so-called reasonable Republicans are nowhere to be seen as Speaker Johnson tries to jam Trump's Project 2025 agenda into government funding legislation. Extreme Republicans know that this bill has no chance of becoming law, and yet they want to force a vote that jeopardizes military readiness and veterans' health care. We've seen how this ends. The only way to pass a government funding bill is to pass it on a bipartisan basis. Even their own members admit it. The American people are sick and tired of the chaos, the dysfunction, and the extremism that they see from House Republicans and their failure to govern in a responsible way. House Democrats are ready to extend the hand of bipartisanship whenever possible, and we will push back against the continued efforts of MAGA extremism whenever necessary. Vice Chair Ted Lieu.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar. We are back from August recess, and it feels like Groundhog's Day all over again. As Chairman Aguilar has said, we are now facing yet another government shutdown. So let's just review what's been happening ever since Republicans took control of the House last year. The House has had difficulty trying to keep the lights on. We started last year facing down a threat to default on our nation's debts, which would have been catastrophic. We then had to face multiple government shutdown attempts by the Republicans who were in control. They also took out their own speaker. And now we are yet facing another threat to shut down our government. And this particular CR I find deeply offensive. I'm a veteran. There was a $12 billion shortfall in this Republican CR for veterans' health care. And I don't see how this CR passes. It's not a serious attempt to avert a government shutdown, and that's why you have a number of Republicans who have already publicly come out saying they are not going to vote for this CR. So I urge the Republican leadership to get serious, to put a serious CR on the table, and then we can do what the American people need us to do, which is to get rid of the chaos and dysfunction and make government run. I yield back.
Questions? Max.
One of the notable aspects of the CR is the attachment of the SAVE Act to it. Of course, 5 Democrats did vote for the SAVE Act earlier this year. Have you spoken with those 5 Democrats, and do you have a sense of what they might do when this CR comes up for a vote?
Well, first, today we have a rule vote. Let's see how the rule vote goes, and if we'll have this vote. Catherine Clark is an amazing whip, and I'm sure she'll have some thoughts on where members are. We're in the process of having a lot of conversations with members on their thoughts, but all of us agree. We know how this ends. This ends in a bipartisan bill that has Democrats and Republicans on a CR. It doesn't appear that Republicans want to do that right now, and that House Republicans want to do that. They're isolated, though. They're on an island. Doesn't feel like they have much support in the Senate for their position. But we're going to keep talking to our members, and our members want to avert a government shutdown. We voted to avert a government shutdown before. We will do so again. House Republicans are the only ones that flirt with catastrophe on this side of the dome, and we expect that to continue. But it's become, as the Vice Chair said, it's become par for the course with Speaker Johnson, who wants to insert elements of Donald Trump's Project 2025 into this government funding bill. That's what this is about, but we shouldn't be surprised. I mean, this is the chief legal architect of the failed attempt to overturn a free and fair election in Speaker Johnson. This is a continuation of those efforts. That's what he's proven is important to him, is to do what Donald Trump asks, and that's what he's doing this week. Chad. Good morning.
Just to dovetail off that question, you have Democrats from these swing districts who voted for the SAVE Act in July, the Don Davises, the Marie Cruz and Camp Perez's. Obviously Republicans are trying to put them in a box and say, you voted here, say, this is different? How do they explain that to the voters?
Well, look, I mean, standalone pieces of legislation are different than poison pill bills into government funding spending. I mean, look, if I'm those members, I've been a frontline member. There are significant cuts, as the vice chair mentioned, significant cuts to veterans' healthcare legislation, significant cuts that I'm paying attention to in the disaster relief fund. That could be the account that helps fund some of the recovery and efforts for what I'm seeing in the wildfires in California. These are significant cuts that members should be aware of. Members are going to make their own decisions on where they land on these bills, but I can tell you, judging by the totality of what is in front of them, this is not a serious piece of legislation, and this is not a good piece of legislation.
Do voters understand the distinguishing? I mean, we understand why this is different here, but do you think that they understand that and that they can communicate?
Sure. I mean, in this hyper-partisan moment, I understand the desire to want to talk about how this plays back home, from a communications perspective. Our members are focused on how do we avert a catastrophe? How do we avoid a government shutdown? That's what members are concerned about. Primarily, if you want to get into the politics of this, a lot of the attack ads have already been written, so our members are concerned about how we avoid government funding lapsing. That's the important work that we need to do this month. That's what they are concerned about, and then we're going to let the politics go where they go in October. But right now, this is the job in front of us. Nick,
are you going to be watching tonight's presidential debate, and if so, what are you watching for?
Well, I think all of us are going to be tuning in some way, catching the highlights or catching it in real time. I will say, watching it on the East Coast is easier for us as West Coast folks. Sometimes 6 o'clock is a little too early. We're moving around, but yeah, I'll be watching it. I think I'll be watching it with the vice chair. What the American public is going to see is a stark contrast in two candidates. One who's a seasoned prosecutor who is going to make her case, and one who is a felon. One who is going to talk about women's reproductive freedom and their access to abortion care as health care, and the other who is going to take credit for overturning Roe v. Wade. One who is going to advocate for increased tax cuts to millionaires and billionaires, and the other who is going to talk about a tax cut for 100 million families across this country. To bring housing contrast is going to be on display, and we look forward to watching. But look, I mean, make no mistake, Donald Trump has been on a debate stage. He's the most of anybody in modern times. He's going to do what he's going to do, and he's going to speak to his base. But we know that she's going to be ready, and the vice president is going to be ready and polished. I know the vice chair has known her a number of years as well, but we're excited for what we're going to see tonight.
Kamala Harris has put in writing her plans for the future, such as reducing housing costs, going after corporate price gougers to reduce food prices, and protecting reproductive freedom. Donald Trump talks about Hannibal Lecter. So that's a choice we have in November. And it's not just the two presidential candidates. What we see with this CR is the Republicans try to jam through parts of the Project 2025 insane ideas into actual governmental policy. And so that's why, again, we urge that Republican leadership put a serious CR on the floor, not something that is just for messaging, and certainly not something that implements Trump's radical 2025 agenda.
Questions? Michael?
On a separate topic, before the break, the Senate passed 2 bipartisan pieces of child safety legislation. The Online Safety Act and the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. Chuck Schumer on Sunday in a Dear Colleague letter to senators called on the House to pass the bills. He did it again on the floor yesterday. I know you all don't control the floor right now, but do Democrats support those 2 pieces of legislation that passed with big bipartisan
we support bipartisan bills that keep our community safe. And those particular bills are going through Energy and Commerce, and that's where they would make their way to the floor. But important reauthorizations, as well. Those are things that we feel are going to protect our communities and worthy of discussion in this era where social media is such an important part of our lives and our kids' lives. We need to do everything we can. Now, members may take issues with specific pieces of this legislation, but on balance, we need to look at what is in the legislation and what it will do to help our communities and help young people navigate the world that is in front of them, the most connected generation in our lifetime. And so we always look forward to that policy debate. And unfortunately, Speaker Johnson has put a series of bills that aren't going to become law on the House floor, and we're wasting precious time. But as we've talked about, that's part of the chaos that has been the hallmark of his tenure and of House Republicans the past session.
One of the things we're hearing about a CR is that there's some who are arguing that it should be going until February or March because they feel that whoever wins the election should be the ones determining how the government gets funded until September. Do you agree with that notion, or do you think a CR needs to be within this year, this calendar year?
Well, you should be specific, because the only people arguing that point are House Republicans, and specifically House leadership. You're not hearing I haven't heard a lot of House appropriators on the Republican side lean into this. I think Chairman Cole has been very measured in his comments, but I'm not hearing a lot of folks who actually have experience appropriating say that March is where they want to be. In fact, Susan Collins has pushed back against this. So this is House Republican leadership carrying this forward. I think it is important for the House to do its work as soon as possible by putting out a 6-month date. We're not meeting the needs of the American public, and we're giving up before even trying. And so I think what is important is to have a shorter CR to get our work done, and to have something done before the end of the year for the new Congress to begin. I think that's the most important thing. Thank you so much.
Okay. On to the more important.
Oh, yeah, indeed.
He'll know it's from me.
That's fine.
Nothing between, right?
202.
Kind of, I think. They never right here. This is like center.
267.
They changed the rules since I was in it. Sorry. You're good. It's okay.
Johnny was a Star Wars fan.
All right.
Go ahead. You're good. We got this. Oh, wait. I should take the SD card out too. I might be following you. Do I need some help carrying everything? Oh, yeah. She has to go. You go ahead. Oh, Lord. Where's Mom?
Give it to me again.
I replied to your text.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, hopefully they'll publish that quickly.
Good job, guys. Thank you.
We have a breaking news story. It's like a rare thing.
Yeah, we'll tweet it.
Yes. See you in a little bit.
All right, I'm gonna walk, but I'll see you guys. Bye.
I gave him the same look when he's like, I haven't seen Star Wars. I'm like, you're un-American. Another one for Bill.
Alright, see you guys.
Haven't even been up to the office yet.
Yeah.
But the finger thing was, I ordered that twice. It's from some place in China, and like the legs came back broken. So
No.
yeah, I love that thing, but yeah, it's like rubber ceramic kind of, so it broke, and I took it.
It's been forwarded to Bill, to Johnny Cash.
Even Johnny Cash was a Star Wars fan. Yeah. Well, Albert Einstein was a Star Wars fan. All right, there you go.
I like that one.
Okay.
All right. I guess I got to pack up now, don't I?